In previous videos, I've said numerous times that associates cause the majority of the problems in the mob. In the past, many people lost their lives as a result, and in a few instances, inducted members were killed as well. For those who are unaware, when there's a beef, the side of an associate is never to be taken over a member. At least that's the way it should be. But this isn't always the case, which leads us to the following story. I've been mentioning the reign of Vicamuso and Gaspipe Casso at length lately. As we know, they took control of the Lucchese family sometime in 1986. And prior to them doing so, one of the Lucchese's longtime rackets was the Garment Center, a place they controlled alongside the Gambino family. Vicamuso had a good friend by the name of Sidney Lieberman, who was not only in the Garment Center, but owned a few apparel companies. He was a person that Gaspipe also took a liking to, and both boss and underboss began using Lieberman and his connections more and more in the center to their full advantage. At the same time, the Lucchese family already had their guy, which was Lucchese member Michael Papado at the Garment Center, and Papado was a member of Al Diaco's crew. According to Gaspipe, the Lucchese family had dominance at the Garment Center. When a company was targeted by the Lucchese family for labor peace payments, or more precisely extortion, they would contact Lieberman, who would pass the information along to attorney Erwin Schlachter, including the name and address of the company. Schlachter would turn that information over to Egner Romney, who is the executive vice president of the Union of Needle Trades, Industrial and Textile Employees. Romney would then dispatch one of his union organizers to show up at the companies with threats to unionize the workers. This was followed up by Lieberman or Schlachter, who would approach the owner or owners with the solution: extortion money in exchange for labor peace. And this is a known mob tactic: cause the problem and then come waltzing in with the solution, for a fee, that is. Lieberman would also use threats with the backing of the Lucchese family in order to receive these extortion payments. In the late 1980s, while Vic and Gas were in full swing, controlling the family, Lieberman was handing over to them between $200,000 and $500,000 per year, which now put him in a good position and in the boss's good graces. So much so that Gaspipe allegedly had said that he wished he was able to induct Lieberman into the family. His Jewish heritage prohibited this from happening. Lieberman, with full confidence, wanted to become the family's only guy in the Garment Center. So he underhandedly began whispering in Vic's ear that Papado was skimming money from the center, and not a small amount of money. We're talking about millions of dollars. In addition to accusing him of skimming, Lieberman told Vic that Papado owned or controlled companies that were unknown to the Lucchese bosses. In essence, Lieberman was causing Papado a major problem. Skimming money is considered a serious issue, one that can get you killed. Papado eventually caught wind of Lieberman's sneaky tactics and began to have problems with him. When the dust settled, Vic and Gas would side with Lieberman. As a result, Papado was called to a meeting in Manhattan. He showed up with his captain Diaco and was basically told by Vic to stay out of the Garment Center. And more crucially, they wanted all his ledgers and a list of all the companies that the family controlled. To be honest, they should have had all this information by that point, but for whatever reason they didn't. Allegedly, and according to Diaco, before leaving the meeting that day, Vic warned Papado if he didn't follow his orders, he would be killed, which should have been an eye-opening moment for Papado. Nonetheless, Papado didn't listen and continued going to the Garment Center and conducting business. Naturally, Lieberman was only too happy to report this news back to Vic and Gas. The Garment Center wasn't only Papado's form of income. He also had a large loan sharking business. But as the story goes, greed, as usual, was his downfall. The fact that Diaco was Papado's captain caused him to catch heat over the situation. Vic was putting pressure on him because Diaco was expected to handle any member of his crew, and Papado was disobeying an order from the boss. Diaco did try desperately on several occasions to convince Papado to do what he'd been told, but for some foolish reason, he wasn't listening and felt that the decision was unjust. After all, he's been at the garment center for years prior to this. Why he would believe Vic wouldn't react to his insubordination was unknown, or he didn't care. Supposedly, he was dealing with some health issues at the time, and I believe he even had a stroke. Ultimately, and not surprisingly, the decision was made to kill Papado. This came about during a meeting in Canarsie, Brooklyn, where Vic and Gas were in attendance with Al Diaco and Sally Avellino. The Avellinos, Sally and Carmine, would play an essential role in this hit and would be used to lure Papado into the trap. And on May 13, 1989, that's exactly what they did. After meeting Papado at a diner in Long Island, they somehow convinced him to take a ride to Crown Foods, a bakery wholesaler owned by Carmine Avellino on Rockaway Boulevard in Queens. Apparently, Papado trusted the Avellinos enough to go with them, a mistake that would be his last. Once inside the bakery and headed towards the office, the first person to surprise Papado was his captain Diaco, and he did so by hitting him repeatedly with taped-up copper wires, used like a slapjack. Although Papado was hit multiple times, he never went down, and only yelled out, "Why are you hitting me?" Also hiding in the cut, besides Diaco, was Georgie Nex Zappola, who at the time was a Lucchese associate. Zappola shot Papado in the head, but the bullet only ricocheted. Amazingly, Papado still remained standing, and at this point, Zappola pulled out a backup gun and shot him in the head again, this time doing the job. If you haven't liked this video yet, please take the time now and hit the like button, as it helps with YouTube's algorithm. Also, for anyone who'd like to show their appreciation for videos like this, or more importantly, to help me to continue making them, you could do so with the Super Thanks icon found down below, or the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. And let me quickly remind everyone of my blog, especially those of you who still enjoy reading. It can be found at sitdownnews.com and is subscription only. One interesting fact is, in typical Lucchese fashion, Vic Amuso falsely labeled Papado and voiced his concern that he felt he was an informant. If you look back at Lucchese history, this same pattern has taken place repeatedly. It's not just me saying it, it's a fact. When members are falsely accused of being informants, Diaco himself would fall victim to the same label. So according to Diaco, it was Carmine Avellino who rifled through Papado's pockets, searching for any evidence to support Amuso's suspicions. Ultimately, there was none. I mentioned at the start of the video that an associate's side should never be taken over a member's. And if you think about this, it makes sense. Remember, a member can call an associate a liar, but an associate can never call a member a liar. So Vic Amuso did just that. He chose the associate side. And I asked viewers, why do you think he took Lieberman's side over a longtime Lucchese members? Papado was inducted sometime in the 1970s. The reason being had nothing to do with Vic's friendship with Lieberman, but more so the money that he was handing over. Money on a larger scale than Papado was turning in. And that's the truth. In that life, money rules. And if a decision's being made, one that can cost you your life, you better hope the money you're kicking up stacks up higher than your opponent.